I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. The new film, Blaze, directed by Ethan Hawke, tells the story of outlaw country singer Blaze Glory and his songs, his friends, his love, and the legend versus the man. It's a beautiful film that forgoes a linear narrative structure for a more elliptical and I'd say daring approach as we see the scenes and moments that make up Blaze's life rather than the one defining story. First-time actor Ben Dickey portrays Blaze in a performance that I think most veteran actors will be jealous of. Let's take a look at the trailer. Everybody, please welcome from Blaze, Josh Hamilton, Charlie Sexton, Alia Shawkat, Ethan Hawke, and Ben Dickey as Blaze. Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for being here. Congratulations on a phenomenal film. A really great, beautiful film. Subtle, different, totally original. It was completely unexpected, and I was floored by it. Congratulations.
Thank
you. You won me.
Yes, indeed.
Let's talk about what made you not just want to tell this story, but tell this story the way that you did. Go for a kind of non-linear structure, one that was a bit more elliptical and focused on moments and scenes rather than a sort of grand overarching narrative about this man.
Well, anybody that knows me well knows I can't keep track of my shoes or my phone or my hat or my, I can't keep track. So I see the world as elliptical and strange and non-linear. It's just the one wonderful thing about getting to be in charge of how the camera moves and everything is you get to see the world through your eyes, And I've always felt that the past, the present, and the future are so deeply interconnected that it's a lie when you say things happen A, B, C, or D. It doesn't work like that. My favorite Tom Robbins line is, "It's never too late to have a happy childhood," And when I read Sybil Rosen's book, Ben and I had this interest. It started with our friendship about Blaze Foley, believing in this music. I believed in Ben. I believed in that Blaze represented to a lot of artists who aren't noticed, who don't find a place in the commercial environment. Blaze represented hope that they might be significant and they might be of value. And I thought that would be a cool movie, but it wasn't until we found Sybil's book that her book deals with time the same way that my brain deals with time. It uses the songs as kind of time portals where life keeps changing, bless you. Life keeps changing, but the song is the same, but your relationship to the song keeps evolving, which is our relationship to all music. And I thought we could make a cool movie that way.
And now Ben has never acted before. It's an incredible performance.
That is no longer true.
Yeah. And the two of you were friends. You both shared a fondness, I think, for Lucinda Williams and the Drunken Angel song, and then Blaze Foley, as well as Townes Van Sant. How did you convince Ben to take on this role? Did it take convincing? How did you know he could do it?
I don't think he took me seriously at first. Well, so why say no to something that's not going to happen? Don't you think that's a little bit how you think?
Well, I thought my band had just disintegrated underneath me, and it was something that was breaking my heart pretty serious, and I was working in a kitchen too often, too much, and I thought he was giving me a New Year's Eve, you can do anything you want to do, my friend. Keep your head up, man. Keep your head up. He's so exuberant.
Be an actor? You can be an actor. Be a composer.
Yeah. I mean, it was 5 a.m. He was hopping around the house like Dennis Hopper. He said, "Oh, you're unbelievable, man. You're crazy." And then we went to bed, and I woke up at like 8:30 to him still, "You want to go on a walk?" I was like, "No, it's like 8 degrees outside, and I'm still drunk." And he's like, "I'll buy you a coffee and a juice if you come on a walk with me." And I was like, "All right." And he was walking circles around me like I was the globe and he was the moon. And he was like, "I really think it'd be great. It'd be great." And he's like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, "I love you too, man."
So day one comes. I imagine there had been a fair amount of preparation and talking to you beforehand about this. Day one comes, and what was that like for you?
Day one, well, I was in the nervous soup for about 6 weeks, just stewing and getting ready. And preparation's a serious thing that I take serious in music, and I took serious as being a chef. Day one, I was
Any phone calls beforehand where you were like, "I can't do this, Ethan. I don't know if I can do this"?
No, I was on the raft. We were going downriver. It was fine. I had my safety valve with my guitar. I knew that I could do that part of it, and if it was really ugly, all the other stuff I did, he would make a sexy art film where I wouldn't talk much, but I would sing. But Alia and I, our truck scene was our first day, and I had already sort of confessed to her how nervous I was when we met in New York. And so, I think she was picking up my nervousness, and she's like, "You want to run your lines?" And I said, "Well, that's what you do, right?" And so we took a walk, ran lines, and we got in the back of that truck, and You know, there's a mysterious confluence with this entire project that continues. And it's mystic and wonderful, and I'm open to all things in the universe. And I think music comes from billions and trillions of miles away, and it exists within and without. So as soon as we started, something just was very natural and very easy. And, you know, I couldn't tell you how my nerves subsided, but they would be there in the morning, and then they would subside once we started. And it has to do with Alia, and it has to do with Josh and Charlie and Ethan. And the environment that was created, you know, they were protecting me a lot. There was a lot of things that were done to help me out that were not perceivable by me until they passed, you know. I was like, oh, you made my hardest parts the first 3 days on purpose.
Is that true? Was that scene that we see in the trailer where there's something pulling you? Was that in your first 3 days? Was that something that you had to...
He's talking about the breakup scene.
No, the breakup. So I had 26 monologues the first 3 days that were over 2.5 minutes, and then 15 songs to perform top to bottom. Sometimes song, monologue, song, and the camera never stopped moving. So if I fumbled the through that run, we started at the top. And everybody else knew that. You know, the AD was like, are you sure about this? Are you sure about this? But again, I was just like, this is what I've been tasked to do. And then when that week was over, it was like, oh, this day, oh, that's nothing. This day, oh, I mean, the breakup scene, death scene, all that stuff's hard. But when you have, like, just me talking to a bunch of people for 2.5 minutes, and then I play you a song, and then I talk to you for 2.5 minutes, and there's, like, people moving and stuff, there's nerve-wracking, you know? It's like its own little play. So when that was over, and I kind of knew everybody a little bit better, and my heart was, like, no longer thundering in my chest during every, you know, second of filming, I dropped into the current, and I was okay.
I imagine you did that on purpose, not just to sort of warm him up as an actor or sort of throw him in and get him swimming, but also because the character in that moment in the bar, he's racked with nerves. He's incredibly nervous. This is the first time he's gotten the chance to record in a while. It's his last chance, possibly.
It's a little bit like being the coach of a team or something like that. You have to have a really good game plan. And part of what happened to me on Dead Poets Society, I remember this very clearly. Peter Weir had one of my hardest scenes first. And I remember saying when it was over, why did you do that? I mean, I've been so nervous about this. And he said, because you got to lose your virginity. You know, you don't lose it until you do something hard. You're not in it until it's hard. Until you're asked to do something difficult, you're still going to be nervous. And my hope was that, and a lot of people are so scared to be nervous, but it sharpens your swords. You care. It's good to care about life. More and more with the way we live our lives, everything's so casual. Well, this was important to Ben. You know, standing up for Blaze Foley was important to him. It wasn't just a job. If he failed at this, it was going to be that's the mistake. But when people say, oh, it's a labor of love, it's like, oh, it must have been fun. No, it's not. When it's a labor of love, it's going to, this is my life. You know, Charlie, one of the first things he said to me, he said, if I do this and you make a bad film, you're going to screw up my whole life. You know, I mean, he lives in Austin. Music is his life. This is something, these people are friends of his, family friends. This music means something to us. If I let Sybil Rosen down, this is her life story. This is an important love affair in her life, and this is art that she has made from her life. And if we drop the ball, so labor of love is it's not like some soft pillow. It's actually a sharp edge, you know, and you have to do it. You just got to cut it. You got to go. And I had the hope that if we did a lot of the more things that Ben perceived as difficult, like learning lines, that's when you're a young actor, that's the thing you worry about. Well, let's get that part you're worried. What's hard is making us believe that you two are in love and that your relationship is of value and your relationship is of interest to other people and meaningful that they can relate to. That's actually hard. So let's do that last, you know? So we did the Treehouse stuff last. Josh Hamilton and I started a theater company when we were in our early 20s. We've been studying acting together since we were kids. And so, like, putting Charlie with Josh and Ben with Josh. You know, I was trying to keep these guys safe. They were putting themselves at serious risk playing very dangerous characters. Blaze and Towns are mysterious human beings. They circled the flame, the candle, really close. And if you're going to try to mine that, you have to fly close too. And Alia is like me, I really feel. We both started acting when we were really young, like Josh too. And we have a natural understanding of acting and a relaxation with it. What was it like for you, acting?
I also think you both have an interest, the three of you have an interest in taking on big risks as actors as well. Not just this and working with a first-time actor on a project like this, but what you were here for last time, Duck Butter, the movie that you made in 24 hours and for the most part improvised. Yeah, and
Blaze, we're here for Blaze, right?
A phenomenal film, and I think if people look at the movies that you've done and the movies that you have coming up along with this, you're clearly a person who is interested in doing risky, fun things as an actor.
Yeah, I mean, what else are we here for? To make risky, fun things. But, I mean, for this, in a way, like, I remember I was telling my mom, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this movie. And she's like, well, who's playing the main guy? And I was like, this guy, Ben Dickey, he's a musician. He's a good friend of Ethan's. And she's like, has he acted before? And I was like, no, I guess this is his first thing. And she was like, well, that's going to be interesting, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, I guess it will be. But when I Skyped with Ethan for the first time, just the way that our minds kind of melded very quickly, where I was like, oh, I know the kind of movie you want to make, and I'm all about being a part of those kinds of films.
What does that mean?
I mean, we were talking about John Cassavetes' style of filming and just like the kinds of, you know, the passion that Ethan has and everything he does, and I was a fan of Blaze Foley. So when he just kind of like pitched me not only what the story was, but how he wanted to make it, I just felt the pathos. I was just like, yes, I want to be a part of this. And it really comes from like trust. So something might seem risky, you know, or weird from the outside, but that's only coming as a reaction to whether you trust something or not. So I trusted him. I was like, I don't know all the facts, but I know enough that my instinct's going to take me to Louisiana. And then when I met with Ben, that's the risk of any. I could work with an actor who's done so much stuff and meet them and be like, uh-oh, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought it was. And he hadn't done any acting, but when I met him, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I just trusted him immediately, I mean, as a person, but his instincts were just so there. It's just like with acting, it's like the knowledge of just like, even if you've done it for so long, I'm like, as long as you don't know you're doing it, then you could still kind of create something new.
And also, do you have like a preternatural instinct for how humans behave?
Exactly.
There's so often where you can meet an actor and you're like, why would you say it that way? A human would not say it that
right.
way.
And they're like, but this is what a cool human sounds like. I'm like, we're in trouble. But yeah, it was just there. And again, the world that Ethan was able to create and all the people that he picked and brought into this very intimate environment, it was like we were just all so present all the time. And it wasn't this thing of like, oh, tomorrow we got that big scene. You know, it was like, oh, this is just the world that we're a part of. And there was just so much trust there. I mean, like, unbelievably so.
She referenced John Cassavetes, and I don't necessarily think the film, you can see a Cassavetes sort of feeling within the movie, but I do feel when I watch the movie that is something that I get from Cassavetes and a number of other filmmakers, very few of them, is you feel like they're finding the film while they're writing it, while they're shooting it, and while they're editing it, which is a very liberating experience as a viewer. It's much more exciting, and is it like that for you while you're...
I just couldn't agree with what you said anymore. I mean, Ben made a joke about us bouncing around like Dennis Hopper, but you know, Dennis Hopper is a symbol of an ethos of, you know, whether you're thinking about Easy Rider or you're thinking about him as an actor.
Out of the blue?
Yeah, out of the blue, yeah. When you're thinking about the way you felt people that weren't delivering you a unit of sale. They were going and having an act of creativity that had a tremendous amount of thought behind it and work behind it, but it was creativity. And it's not, they're not reaching their hand behind your back and trying to take money out of your wallet. You know, they're trying to say, do you think like I think? Are you scared like I think? And if you watch Easy Rider right now, this movie is standing the test of time. It's a major, major work of art. And I only bring it up to say that Cassavetes, I don't want to imitate Cassavetes. I want to imitate the energy and the seriousness of saying, I want to tell the truth. And so when, you know, Charlie would come to set and he could teach me about music. And I could be smart enough to go, teach me, you know, that, and I could have a plan about how the architecture of the movie was going to work, but I wanted to let the actors teach me about their characters, because that's what I want directors to do when I'm playing a character.
Charlie, talk about that a little bit. And let's go back to what we said before about this being a pretty nerve-wracking experience for you coming from this world, and I'm sure having a certain amount of worship for Townes Van Zandt, as I think most people, even if they're not a part of the sort of folk music world, have for him. What was it like playing him, and how nervous were you, and what kind of conversations did you have with Ethan? What did you do to get rid of that nervousness?
It's what with the heat of it wasn't the word nervous isn't what it was. It was just like this. It's kind of more steeper than that. There was a lot of responsibility for playing someone like that, in general, but also with the connection I have to the family, and it was a big load, and also navigating through all the millions of stories and legends that were created, true, not true, about him. So, and how did I prepare? It was interesting because I did some personal research speaking to specific people, my family members that knew Townes really well. Steve Earle was another one. And I had to make specific choices about, there was going to be all this stuff below him that you're not going to really be, not really seeing, we're not really doing it, but it's all there. So it's sort of like I had to put him together. What does he front with? You know what I mean? If he's being funny, is he actually funny, or is he actually sad and he's just trying to be funny? Is he, he was a very chameleon-like person himself, and
He's always trying to tell the story, be it his story or somebody else's story. He wants to be in command of the narrative that is being shaped around him, it seems.
there was some. I've said it before, and I hate to repeat myself, but there were. I found there were definitely some shared shadows that we had. That I had to deal with them, and I had to kind of live in them. And was actually, the irony of it too is I was coming straight off the road, so the amount of preparation was pretty narrow because I could not have Townes on tour with Bob Dylan. Those guys didn't hang much, and there's probably a reason for that. So I'm nocturnal, and I do a lot of that's where all the messages come to me, is when everyone else is sleeping, whether they're songs or problem solving or whatever. And so I just had to schedule those times where I would go into that dark room, that closet, for instance. I mean, for me, to give you a specific, when he wrote one of his first real song, it had nothing to do with him. I mean, he hadn't lived that life. He was in a, fancy school, came from a good family, and was brought up well.
Was that waiting around to
Waiting around to
die?
die,
Yeah.
And basically what it was is, the story is he had a closet in their newlywed apartment that he made his office. And he would go in there and work until he was done. It wasn't like, it wasn't in Nashville, okay, it's start at 9 and at 11:30 we got that hit song. All right, let's go to lunch. And so I kind of metaphorically and physically went into that place. And I'm so glad I was given that opportunity to do it because I hadn't gotten inside of those songs as much as I wanted to. And you got to get rid of the static to actually hear what he's saying,
This is a deep in the weeds, maybe tangential question that might drive this interview into the ground, but it's my show, so I'll do what I want.
Risk it, right? Risky.
The African American man that Blaze is protecting at the end of in the film, is that also the guy in "Be Here to Love Me" that's weeping when Townes sings "Waiting Around to Die"? No, okay.
No, Concho was played by Teddy, who owns Teddy's bar, Teddy's Juke Joint.
Well, not the actor, but
Okay.
yeah,
Person. Yeah, clearly. No, it just shows the shared sensibility between Blaze and Townes. Ben can speak very beautifully about this. Why don't you do it?
Well, the fellow you're referring to is a friend of Townes's, and that is actually Townes's girlfriend in that trailer that they lived in. That fella actually was an iron worker and a metalsmith, a master, in fact. And so Townes considered him a master, and I think he considered Townes a master. And that video of him watching him play Pancho and Lefty,
Heart-Worn Highways, great film.
I
if
think
you haven't seen
that's just an individual who's really tapped into what Townes Van Zandt was intending to say with that song, which he claims he has no idea what he was intending to say. Concho, January, is and was a person that was downtrodden and had some cards, had a lot of cards stacked against him, and had a son who was born a heroin addict, and Blaze was very fond of him as a person, and he was a lonely man that didn't have a lot of friends, and Blaze adopted him, and he adopted Blaze. And something that was really, handled with care about this movie is the murder itself. Ethan has put it very eloquently. There was two drunk drivers, and they both crashed into one another. One of them died. And Carrie January, who's still alive to this day and has gone on to do, honestly, the work that Blaze, I think a sober Blaze would have loved to have been able to do, which is actually help people and make a difference in people's lives. And that's been one of the most sensitive points of making this movie is the concussions of energy that are going to hit him again from this movie. And, maybe we're standing and talking right now to be loud enough to say to him, like, we know that it was two drunk drivers, and we know that what he's doing now is full of humanity and love. And Concho was somebody that Blaze wanted to protect, and that was the bottom line. And I think that the guy that's in the towns, the Heartworms Highway is a master metalsmith, and I think Towns was like, you're a master and people don't see you. And that's something that all them cats were trying to get at, is we're all here to do things, and we should be able to do it equally.
I thought the death scene was handled very sensitively. And the way that the character is just as shocked about what has happened as the audience is, and sort of just as heartbroken about what he's done as the audience and the family of Blazes. Josh, you've been pretty quiet back there. Yeah, you play a good friend of Blazes, sort of from the beginning, who kind of gets, I think, swept up within the world of Towns as well. He's sort of the kind of thankless friend of the legend who knows the real story. What was it like playing that character? What did you know about him?
Yeah, well, Z's sort of an amalgam of a couple different friends and bandmates that Blaze had over the years. And I think there was a little bit of that. Someone who was closer to him, who maybe saw him in a less of a legend, just as a guy that he loved. And I think he's frustrated by the legend that grew up around him, and people sort of he's like, no, this is just my friend. And he was an addict. He was a really hurt guy who wrote beautiful songs. But he's people love to create these legends, and sometimes legends, they can seem self-serving too, because everyone wants to be part of the legend too. So when Ethan called me and said, I'm making this movie with a couple guys who haven't acted much or at all, and he said, can you come down? And I was like, sure. And we went down, and I was like, you don't need me. I was like, they're great, they're fine. Like, you have musicians. I think musicians understand performing and just being in their own skins in a way that, it's not like someone's like an accountant all of a sudden is going to, acting for the first time. I mean, they know, it's like they know how to be an artist in the world. And so I don't think it's that big a leap. I mean, it's different, but it's not, I think musicians, make beautiful actors.
Well, I told him last night, because he was just sort of like, I'm just doing this thing. But the compliment is he had that Duval through the eye of a needle. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's he's not just doing something. He's just sit there, don't just do something. I mean, he was really like that.
Josh knows how to move energy.
Which is a compliment in my strange way.
Yeah.
You're fabulous.
I got it.
I love you so much.
I love you.
But I do think they're good. You bring up Robert Duvall, and not to make you self-conscious, Josh, but the thing about Duvall's presence is that he can move energy, and you don't see him move it. There's a lot of dramatic actors, people acting up a big old storm. But I've done a lot of plays with Josh, and everybody who's in a scene with Josh excels because he moves energy. And that's, I think, why you related to the musicians in them, is good musicians move energy. I mean, it's the same thing. It's an adjustment of a dial, but it's the same idea of focusing energy. And it's...
Is that something that you're aware of, Josh, that you do as an actor? Is that something that you've sort of early in your career was like, this is something that I'm good at in regards to dynamics, and I'll focus on that? Or is that
No, I never thought about it like that. I just...
You don't go into scenes and go, I focus the energy in here, everybody.
We get it.
Energy to the left.
Yeah.
You just can't help but be fabulous,
Yeah.
really.
No, I just try to be there and talk to people.
But you know,
He
that's
just moved the
I try to be
energy.
a decent
Imagine
person,
that.
you know.
that's a big thing what you just said, because you just be there and talk to people. When Ben was first, it was funny as we were getting closer and closer, there would be these moments where Ben would say, well, I'm worried about this. And I said, well, try not worrying about that until you talk to Alia. Because the second you actually talk to Alia, your scene partner, all those concerns are going to change. Because you're actually, I know you, and you're sensitive enough that you would actually listen to her and see her movements. And then it's a joke. People say it, yes, it's corny, like acting's not acting, it's reacting. But you know, all of life is like that. And you say this, you know, it's preparation, 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 and then be alive. And I remember seeing Nicholson in that. Kubrick's daughter made a documentary about the making of The Shining. And you see Nicholson prepare, and he prepares, he's so interested in his character, and then he goes on front of the camera, he has no idea what he's gonna do. And that's what's so exciting about what, you're not getting some reheated performance. It's not some microwavable dinner. You're getting the creativity itself. He's got a lot of ideas of things that might happen, and then he well, where's the camera gonna be? Oh, the camera's gonna be over there. Oh. Well, maybe I'll crawl on the floor then, or maybe I'll laugh, or maybe, I mean, he doesn't have an agenda. It's not something he practiced in the mirror, and now he's just gonna regurgitate it for you.
Can you talk about telling the story of the legend versus the man in this film? Like, the story is told by Townes, who's sort of telling the legend, and then the story is lived by all the people who are existing with the man.
That's what Josh was talking about, is that there are people that are interested in legend building, and there are people that are interested in the truth. I remember I had this great experience of interviewing, Chris Christopherson is in the movie, and he is a true legend. But the interesting thing about the man is he hates legend building, right? He's a very, very honest person. And I said to him, wow, Johnny Cash tells the story of, you know, you landing your helicopter in his front yard. You got a beer in one hand and your demo tape in the other, and you land his copper, and it's Sunday morning coming down, and you made him listen to it. Johnny Cash tells that story. And Chris goes, you ever flown a helicopter? You know, I'm like, no. He's pretty hard to do with a beer in one hand and a demo tape in the other. I mean, you can't do it with your knees, you know? Yeah. No, I would know, I'd get arrested if I did that. You know what I mean? He's like, I gave him the demo tape 15 times. He never listened to it. I finally went to June. I said, would you please let him play this? She listened to it. He still wouldn't listen to it. Then he found out I flew helicopters, and he thought that was cool, so he listened to it.
Did he tell you that story on the set, like while you were shooting this movie?
No, he told to me years ago when I was.
okay.
I interviewed him once. I was very interested in him as a person and as an artist. My point, though, is that Charlie's character, you know, Charlie's playing Townes, but he's not just playing Townes. He's playing Townes in our movie, and actors have a job to do. They have a story to serve. So he can't just play Townes in a vacuum. He has to play Townes and serve our story and help move our movie, which is different. So that's why it's art. It's not reenactment, right? But his character is trying to get the world to pay attention to his friend that he loves and wants his music. And his way of doing that is to say wild stories that may or may not be true, right? But he's myth building. You see that in, you know, you see it in a lot of musicians do that. Z's character is, you know, based in part on Gurf Morlig's, who is another running buddy of Blaze's, who in Townes didn't like Gurf, you know, because Gurf was really liked his friend and really liked reading and really liked magazines and going to do their dental work and doing the normal things, and he really liked his friend.
And he was trying to keep Blaze on the straight and narrow a little bit more because he knew how talented he was, but that he often got in his own way. And he was like, no, man, you got to get to the studio and you got to finish the tracks.
Gurf didn't want to do drugs with Blaze, you know, and Gurf is still alive, writing and singing beautiful music.
Story alive.
And keeping Blaze. And they each did it. I mean, that's kind of my story. They each did it in their own way. And each was being true to themselves. But what that does is let you know that no man's life, no woman's life has one story. Blaze's story is his story. Michael Fuller's story, right? You know? And we're all part of the legend building. We're all part of, wow, this amazing person walked with us. What did you think about him? You know? We made art about him right now, and you can listen to the songs. You can listen to Ben sing the songs. You can, I mean, it's part of it's part of what I love about the oral history tradition of music, is how each generation hears the music of the generation before them and delivers it to the next.
It's one of the things that I loved about the film was the juxtaposition of the legend of the man versus the mundanity of being just a struggling musician who's also an addict, and having a relationship that doesn't work out, and having a career that doesn't necessarily working out, and having a drinking problem, and having friends, and failing and being sad, versus this idea of the legend that we hold up. I just love that juxtaposition, because usually we just get the legend side of it. We don't get that
And
he was a
legend
man.
means third person. Legend means seeing yourself in it's a lie. I mean, you hear this about Elvis. Elvis was exhausted being Elvis. Michael Jackson was exhausted being Michael Jackson. Authenticity is the best. The best of Blaze's music operates free of any legend. It's so. What's that line? The eyes of the old meet the eyes of the young, and eyes of the young meet the eyes of the old, and what they were thinking I've never been told. I mean, just singing about a baby looking at an old woman's eyes. And the bus driver still needs a dime, Chair got knocked over, I got the blues. I feel so good, I feel so bad, I wonder what I ought to do. Blaze has these lines that are they just cut space and they make you think. That's not legend building. That's an honest human being talking to you. Yeah. And that, what we do to sell ourselves, what we do to make sense of ourselves, what we do to like ourselves, what we do to sabotage ourselves, that's third person legend building, self-sabotage, self-aggrandizement, whatever you call it. They're kind of two sides of the same coin,
Questions from the audience? Right here, sir.
Hi, how you doing? I'm looking forward to watching the movie. Question for Ethan and Alia. So first question is, what was it like working with Sybil Rosen, taking a story that was so passionate to adapt into the screen? And second question, what was it like having Sybil on set as the screen supervisor? So you're portraying a character that's on set, watching your performance. So.
You go first.
Can we go first? Well, I remember when we first spoke, Ethan was telling me about the process with Sybil, and I got the book and started to read it, and that was actually the thing that maybe I had a little nerves about. I was like, I'm gonna meet this person, and I just wonder if she's on. And he was like, and if you ever feel weird if she's on set, just talk to me about it. And I was like, yeah, because I never played a real person that I had met. So I didn't have any expectations, but I was like, we'll see how this goes. And right when I met Sybil, it was like everything else on this, where the questions no longer kind of existed. It was strange when she wasn't on set, honestly. It was more than just a maternal figure, but she carried this light, this kind of the spiritual connection of everyone in the crew and the cast, that literally when she was not present, it was like, wait, where's Sybil at? Shouldn't she come here before we start doing this? Just to be present, because you can only imagine how psychedelic the experience, is and was shooting for her. And also all the little, we were living, the way we were shooting was in this beautiful kind of compound. And so we'd be having dinner, and then she's like, come here, I want to show you something. And then she'd share with me a love letter that they would send to each other. These really personal things that you would never be able to get from any other kind of project, really. I feel like when I imagine sometimes people doing some form of biopic, it's the person, I did a Lifetime movie once. Don't hate me for it, but and I remember I didn't meet the girl.
I just want to know more all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was a rough movie. But I remember the person I played, I met her the last week of shooting, and she came on set, and she was really shy teenager. She was like, hey. And I was like, oh God, I've been playing this all wrong. I was like, this is not, we're not really doing anything here. There's no real connection. But on the very opposite end of it, yeah, with Sybil, we were, and again too, I was playing Sybil Rosen, but I wasn't playing her. We created this other person, and together in a way. I remember one of the first days we were there, we took that school bus to go see Griff play. And I told her, I was like, I haven't fallen in love that much that many times in my life, and we were already immediately, being very open with each other. And I was like, so I'm a little nervous. I was like, I have to fall in love, and I wonder if I know how to do it. And she was like, well, you get to fall in love in this. You get to learn how to do it. and like it was so. I was like, I do get to fall in love in this. Yeah, so nothing was like too defined. It was like we really got to make it together.
The roles were blurred. Sybil played her own mother in the movie. Sybil's an actor, and so I think in a lot of ways that I couldn't have foreseen, my co-writer was also a huge resource for Ben, because not only is she a co-writer talking to an actor, she's a fellow actor, helping you think about how to prepare for a role and helping him have confidence, helping him understand, and also, well, why don't you talk about that?
Well, first of all, Sybil's right there, so that's
Let's
fine.
give her,
I would.
let's give her a round of applause.
I so wanted to break the fourth wall and go to her.
Sorry. So, you know, for me, getting over the county line of Blaze Foley was his music, and that got me pretty deep into town. Not towns, Blaze Town. Blaze Town. And, you know, his arc of music is playful, silly, funny, dark, really dark, heartbreakingly dark. And if you're not looking around, you're not a human if you don't see how dark this is dark. And she and I, through Ethan's direction, it was one of his first things as a director. I was very nervous to reach out to her via the internet for fear that it was a trivial digital way to say hello. And it was a good thing that he told me to do that, because we started a correspondence 2 or 3 times a day, about as many words as you could fit on a postcard. And I was alone with this script, so I was I was recording myself playing Blaze's music, and I would send her a song, and we'd send each other stuff back and forth. So it was like being at a campfire with somebody that wasn't there, and no one else was around. And by the time she came to set, when we met, we did nothing but stand next to each other for 4 or 5 minutes, just breathing. And it was a heavy spiritual deal. I mean, my imagination and the way I came up, I'm open to it all, Jag. I've seen you before, I'm certain of it, and it was a different place and time. But she gave me permission to be more myself as this new Blaze, like Alia was saying. This is a new Sybil Rosen, a new Blaze Foley. I was really hung up on his voice. Was I going to do an impression of his voice? Well, I was real hung up on the words, the way he said them. But the music, I wanted to really, really, really try to hit right between the eyes. I wanted his intention, his cadence, and his breath. I wanted all that stuff to be dead on, his guitar playing. I wanted all that to be right on. But I was just terrified about the rest of it. Sybil, in her spirit and her generosity, gave me permission to not worry about all that. And I dumped so much worry off going into this other person, this new Blaze. And I think that Blaze gave her permission to give me permission to do that.
Alia, did you already respond to this? I'm sorry. I did, yeah. Okay, great. Let's move on. Next question.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and I can't wait to see the movie. I guess the question that I have, especially for Ethan, is when you make a movie like this, like a biopic or movie about a real person, how do you deal with... I just lost all of my words, I'm sorry.
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah. How do you deal with sort of, showing on screen your love for the person and your passion for the person, while at the same time sort of conceding that they are human and showing all of their faults, sort of? So how do you sort of not make it too worshipful, while at the same time not making it like a character assassination?
Fascinating question. I think one of the things I don't like about biopics is the celebration of the individual, that somehow one person is so fabulous. I mean, even you take a person like Martin Luther King, who's so obviously fabulous and amazing. I mean, Nelson Mandela, Nelson Mandela didn't save South Africa all by himself. He's part of a movement and part of an energy, and he rode the top of that wave beautifully and with unbelievable leadership. But it's a community makes up any success, and so to do a movie that deifies the individual is I'm a little allergic to that. And I think that's part of why Blaze was a subject matter that really interested me, because he's an individual that we don't notice. And when you see the movie, I hope that you walk out of it feeling good about yourself, and your value, because I think what the movie is trying, the subtext of the movie is that there's a million Blaze Foleys around us all the time. And are you looking? Are you looking at your neighbor? Are you listening to your neighbor? Do you see the other people in the bar? You know.
That's what I thought was somewhat radical about the film in terms of being a biopic, is that you don't walk out of the film thinking, not to use this word again to hammer it, but you don't walk out of the film thinking of the legend of Blaze Foley. And you want to hear the songs, you want to know more about him, but you're not walking out going, God, what an incredible, anything like that.
Ultimately, it's a love story. You know, it's a love story. Blaze's love, it's about a love of music and where that manifests with Sybil Rosen and where that manifests through friendship with Townes Van Zandt and his community. You know, there's these two different love stories that Z bounces between both of them. You know, that's the idea.
It's an especially important time for this movie to be made, because I think to be a musician in this day and age, I think you're sort of expected to be not only an artist and to have that passion, but you have to sort of be an incredible business person too, and like sell yourself and know how to brand yourself. And I think that's something that Blaze was, you know, he was a beautiful artist, but he did not know how to brand himself. You know, he didn't know how to. And
How to work.
99%, you know, of artists, they don't get recognition. And this is a movie about an artist who, you know, wasn't famous in his lifetime. I think that's pretty great.
One more.
Hi, Ben. Before you took on this role as Blaze, you belabored that you had to go back to cooking when your band folded. And the majority of American artists have day jobs because public funding in the arts in the United States pales in comparison to the rest of the world, the developed world. What was it about cooking, though, that informed your art as a musician and informed your work as an actor in your debut? And Alia, how did you kind of feel that lived experience through your work with him as a first-time actor that's not striving to be an actor?
Well, something about people that's true is they got to eat, right? And I didn't go back to it. I was always there. I never, you know, that was one of the things that from 22 until 3.5 years ago, I still was doing it. I was drawn to it for a couple of reasons. The first one is people got to eat, and I love people. And I want to make people good food to eat. And I care about that process. It's a creative process. It's a tangible process. It's a gratifying process. It's a teamwork environment. I love protein. I love vegetables. I love the chemistry of it. And I love the magic of it. I consider it a form of magic and a form of healing, just like I think music is. I would much rather be playing a guitar, but I would rather make you dinner than to talk to you about the weather. Right? So I went to it that way. And I think that I apprenticed and I worked in French kitchens, and before I knew it, I was a sous chef. And before I knew that, I was an executive chef. And I had a rock and roll band that I was dead set on getting into the airwaves in a big, big way. And it took over my life in a way that was scary, and at the same time, it provided some sort of stability to my life that had been absent from 16 to 23 when I was free. Now, punk rock kid, I toured, my first tour, I was 16 years old. I toured around, played around, threw the dice against the wall thousands of times. And it didn't matter to me anymore. My expectations were gone, but I still wanted to be a musician. But what the world of being a chef proper and a sous chef proper is a tremendous discipline, and it makes you care about preparation. And I have the nervous Nellies to the nth degree if things aren't right for making supper, even for friends. I need a clean workspace. I need my knives. I need my things. I need all these different disciplines. People keep asking me, Ethan and I have been all over Texas in the last 28 days, you know, doing Q&A. I think we've done 72 Q&As in the last 21 days. People get saying, oh man, I'm so sorry you're going through this. So you're working so hard. And I was like, it ain't brunch on Sunday, sister. Trust me.
I don't trust anybody that hasn't worked in a restaurant for a little while.
Gallons of hollandaise sauce made by my hands. I used to make English muffins by hand. I used to cure meat. I used to do all the whole thing. But all those disciplines are beautiful, beautiful disciplines, and they're very old. And they go way, way back, just like music. So I think that's why I was drawn to it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he wasn't like, this is my first break. I've been auditioning for, you know, nothing. Like, finally, I got this. Like, I met Ethan. We hit it off. I can't believe it. You know, it was refreshing. But at the same time, the biggest part, something that I find in acting is, like, that so many people don't know about is that when you're on set, like, the actual work, it's such a group. There's a huge group of people. Sometimes it's small, but still people you're dealing with every day. So you're trying to maintain a focus of this energy that you're trying to bring up, you know, for all these ideas and stuff, but it's really about focus. So all of a sudden they're like, everyone's touching you, rolling, blah, 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 and go. And you're like, huh? Go, right, go, okay. So to get into that practice of knowing how to set in is almost the hardest part. Ben just had that instinctually. Seeing the people, he never would be like, someone would come up and he'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm doing something right now. It was, what's happening is what's happening. And he embraced it. I talked to people, telling jokes. I mean, he would have us laughing all the time. It's like, I think someone was saying like, oh, watching you laugh in that movie. Like, and I was like, I was dying laughing all the time. And I love how much it's on camera because it's just real. It's like, he's always present, like terrifyingly so. So there's so much stuff's going on, especially in the treehouse, which is like the most intimate. These two people have been alone in this place for a long time. And I'm like, how do you create that and not just feel like there's a bunch of people watching us do it? And we're like, yeah, we're lovers and living in this house together. It's like people would be setting up, and it's a hard space too, and with candlelight, and it's cold. Yeah, we're doing all these things trying to create this super intimate moment, and it's low budget, so it's like we're having to. It's hard to get this one little moment to feel real. And Ben and I are just like locked eyes, telling jokes, like laughing, and he was not distracted. I remember getting a weird mic pack put on me, and it was freezing, and all this stuff, but we're just like, we were able to stay in it so much together, And I think that's all his life experience. It's like he doesn't get distracted by the stuff.
Steve Zahn and Sam Rockwell and Richard Linklater have, little parts in the movie, and they came to set one day, and when Blaze and Towns and Z are supposed to be partying, and Rockwell comes up to me and he's like, I think Ben is drunk. And I'm like, I think he's acting. He's, no, man, that guy's either wasted or he's the best actor I know. and I'm like, we have a different scene to do after lunch. Don't worry, it's gonna be fine. He's like, damn.
You also, one of the scenes in the film, I believe I had heard that it was your last day of shooting. It was in the treehouse, your last day of shooting the treehouse, and you allowed the two of them to essentially improvise something that became this incredibly beautiful scene between the two of them.
I don't like to say this because it seems to dim my own light, My
bad.
But no, we worked really hard for this. The two of them are deep in character, and it was I have. With the Before trilogy, with Linklater and with Boyhood, people are always talking about how we improv, and we never improv. They're workshopped, but they're not improv. And we workshopped this movie very extensively, but part of the DNA of the plan was to play at the end and to try to hunt for intimacy. What is intimacy? What is human intimacy? One thing it's not is you do that and you look doe-eyed and you look interesting and interested. And I let them play and make up scenes and improv. And we had this amazing DP who is a very focused person who really loves actors and who's not interested in making everything look like a beer ad. And he would hop around and we would let them make dinner and talk to each other. And it's a huge scene in the middle of the movie that is the two of them deep in character, talking to each other and having respect for each other, and you feel it on the film that it is two people who have that respect. When you fall in love, you feel witnessed. You see me. I feel unseen, and you see me. And they are seeing each other, and the camera is privy to it. And to be honest with you, I was so in the pocket working. I was thinking about, I'd come to expect great things from this movie. I just got into a place, and I remember the AD going to me, well, you guys were doing that scene. They're like, you are so lucky, And I was like, I guess I am, but they're just gonna
keep moving.
They're gonna make some more lines up in a second. These ones might be even better, so let's keep moving,
Well, guys, congratulations. I love the film. It's an incredible piece of work with amazing performances. And Ben, congratulations. I mean, congratulations, everybody. But
particularly you, Ben.
Yeah. It's in theaters now, right? People can see Blaze right now in theaters?
Right now. It's coming out in New York this weekend in select theaters all over the country. And it will continue. If it's not in your town, it will come out in the next couple weeks. It's staggering over the next 3-4 weeks all across the country.
Go see it in theaters. It's a gorgeously photographed
gotta see
film.
it in the
It
theater,
looks
yeah,
great.
please.
Everyone give them a big round of applause. Let's hear it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.